The moment Garrison Wells's face went white as fresh snow, I knew my rigidly structured life was about to get very interesting. We were sitting on the rooftop terrace of the Monarch rooftop, the kind of overpriced lounge where a single appetizer costs more than most people spend on groceries in a week. My wife Sloane had insisted we join her for dinner with her boss and his inner circle, though she'd introduced me with all the enthusiasm of someone presenting a dead fish. "Oh, this is Pierce," she'd said, barely glancing in my direction. "He's just here." Just here. 23 years of a high society marriage, and I was just here. Garrison Wells, CEO of Novatech Solutions and Sloane's golden boy boss, had given me the kind of handshake reserved for valets and pizza delivery guys. Weak, dismissive, already looking past me to more important things. His girlfriend, Lydia Mercer, Novatech's HR director, had smiled that plastic smile that said she'd forgotten my name before I'd finished saying it. But then Garrison's phone rang. I stepped out onto the terrace for some air, nursing my overpriced whiskey and watching the city lights twinkle below like fallen stars. The autumn wind cut through my custom-tailored jacket, reminding me once again that I supposedly didn't belong in Sloane's shiny new world. Through the glass doors, I could see them laughing at some joke I wasn't part of. Sloane's hand resting just a little too long on Garrison's arm. That's when I heard Garrison's voice rise above the ambient chatter. "What do you mean? Who is he? Spell the last name again." A pause. "Harrison? Pierce Harrison?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Jesus Christ, are you sure he's the senior inspector? The one who shut down the Pendleton project?" I watched through the glass as Garrison's face drained of color. His eyes found mine through the window, wide with something between fear and disbelief. He's sitting right here," Garrison whispered into the phone, "at my table with my oh my God." I took a slow sip of my whiskey, savoring the burn. For the first time in months, I smiled a genuine smile. Garrison Wells, the man who'd been treating me like furniture all evening, had just discovered that the predictable husband he'd been ignoring held the power to destroy his entire empire with a single signature. You see, most people don't know what a senior inspector for the Austin Planning and Zoning Commission actually does. They think we're glorified clerks who rubber stamp permits and check fire extinguishers. They don't realize that in a city like Austin, Texas, where tech billionaires share avenues with old Texas oil money, where elite developers share power with luxury brokers, the Zoning Commission is the invisible hand that shapes everything. We decide who gets to build, who gets to operate, who gets to exist in the legitimate business world. And I'd been doing it for 15 years. When Garrison finally came back inside, his swagger was gone. He kept glancing at me like I might suddenly sprout fangs. The conversation limped along, punctuated by awkward silences and Garrison's nervous laughter. Sloane seemed oblivious to the change, still playing the charming corporate princess, but Lydia had picked up on the tension. Her eyes darted between Garrison and me, trying to solve a puzzle she didn't even know existed. "So, Pierce," Garrison finally said, his voice carefully controlled, "Sloane mentioned you work for the city." "The Zoning Commission," I replied, watching his jaw tighten. "Senior inspector level. I handle the big cases, the ones that can make or break a business." The silence that followed was delicious. Sloane looked confused, Lydia looked concerned, and Garrison looked like he might throw up all over his $80 Wagyu steak. That's great," Garrison managed. "Important work." "Oh, it is," I said, leaning back in my chair. "You'd be amazed how many businesses think they can cut corners on regulations. Fire safety, zoning compliance, environmental impact. They assume no one's paying attention." I took another sip of whiskey. They're usually wrong. The rest of the dinner passed in a haze of forced pleasantries and stilted conversation. Garrison picked at his food like it might be poisoned. Lydia kept checking her phone, and Sloane was different. More animated than she'd been in months, laughing at Garrison's jokes, touching his hand when she made a point, the kind of behavior that might look like professional camaraderie to a casual observer, but I'd been married to her for 23 years. I knew her tells. We drove home in silence. Sloane staring out the passenger window at the dark streets of our neighborhood. Our estate sat high up in Westlake Hills, a sprawling modern mansion that had seemed like a palace when we'd bought it to cement our status. Now it felt like a museum full of high-value artifacts from a high-society marriage that had slowly fossilized over the years. "Garrison seems nice," I said, as we pulled into the circular driveway. "He's brilliant," Sloan replied a little too quickly. "The company's grown 300% since he took over. He's taking us places we never dreamed of." Us, not the company. Us. I waited until Sloan was in the shower before I started looking. 23 years of marriage had taught me where she hid things: the wall safe behind the artwork where she kept her emergency cash, the encrypted flash drive in her closet with offshore account statements, the designer purse she thought she'd hidden behind the winter coats, the downloaded iCloud backups and intercepted text chains from the hidden nanny cams were stored on a second phone in a zippered compartment I'd never noticed before, a sleek iPhone in a platinum case, password protected, but Sloan had always been predictable. Our anniversary date got me in on the second try. The messages made my blood run cold. "Garrison can't stop thinking about this afternoon. You drive me crazy. Sloan, same here. Pierce is working late again tomorrow. My place? Garrison God, yes, wear that blue dress. The one that makes me lose my mind." Sloan, "You mean the one my predictable husband said makes me look like I'm trying too hard?" Garrison, "Your husband wouldn't know sexy if it bit him on his pathetic ass." Sloan, LOL, poor Pierce. He has no idea what he's missing or what he's about to lose. I scrolled through weeks of messages, months maybe, boutique hotel meetups, stolen afternoons, detailed descriptions of what they wanted to do to each other. And woven through it all, a constant thread of mockery aimed at me: my clothes, my job, my performance in bed, my complete obliviousness to what was happening under my own roof. The shower was still running. I could hear Sloan humming something, a tune I recognized but couldn't place at first. Then it hit me like a punch to the gut: "The Way You Look Tonight," the song we danced to at our country club wedding, the song she used to hum when she was happy, when she was in love. She was humming it for him now. I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it and went downstairs to pour myself a real drink. Not the expensive whiskey we'd been served at dinner, but the rare vintage bourbon I kept in the custom cabinet. The kind of drink that burned going down and left you feeling like you'd been punched in the throat. As I sat in my gourmet kitchen listening to my wife hum our wedding song while she washed another man's touch from her skin, I made a decision. Sloan and Garrison thought they were so clever, so sophisticated, playing their little game behind the predictable husband's back. They thought I was just an asset, just a placeholder, taking up space in Sloan's elite life until something better came along. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I pulled out my own phone and opened the contact list. Deacon Vance answered on the second ring. "Pierce, Jesus, it's almost midnight. Everything okay?" "I need a favor, Deacon, a big one." "Name it." Deacon had been my ruthless private investigator and field agent for 8 years, a former corporate espionage expert who'd found his calling in municipal bureaucracy. He was loyal, thorough, and had a talent for finding violations that other inspectors missed. "Novatech Solutions," I said. "Downtown office building, the glass tower on Congress Avenue. I want a full inspection, everything: fire safety, zoning compliance, environmental impact, ADA accessibility, every permit, every certificate, every piece of paper they've ever filed with the city. When? Tomorrow morning. Surprise visit." There was a pause. "Pierce, what's going on?" "Let's just say I've developed a sudden interest in regulatory compliance." "Got it. Want me to bring the full team?" "Bring everyone. And Deacon, be thorough, very thorough." After I hung up, I sat in the dark kitchen for a long time, listening to the massive house settle around me. Upstairs, Sloan had finished her shower and was getting ready for bed, probably composing tomorrow's messages to her lover. She thought she was so smart, so careful. She thought she'd covered her tracks. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated the predictable husband who was just here. I raised my glass of rare bourbon and a mock toast to the ceiling. "Aspen trip's canceled, sweetheart," I whispered. "So is everything else." I woke up the next morning to find Sloan already gone. No note, no goodbye kiss, just the lingering scent of her exclusive perfume and an empty artisanal espresso cup in the sink from the local spot where we used to have our date nights. The same perfume she'd been wearing when she came home late last Tuesday, claiming she'd been working on a charity gala presentation, the same perfume that had been all over her clothes when she'd said she was having drinks with Lydia to discuss country club committee reports. 23 years of a high society marriage, and I'd been blind to all of it. My phone buzzed with a text from Deacon. Team assembled. Novatech in 30 minutes. This is going to be fun. I dressed carefully that morning, not my usual subdued khakis and polo shirt, but my best bespoke suit. Charcoal gray, perfectly pressed, with the silk tie Sloane had bought me in Paris 3 years ago. The one she'd said made me look almost distinguished. I wanted to look professional today, official, like the kind of man who could destroy someone's world with a clipboard and a rubber stamp. The Novatech building was one of those modern glass towers that had sprouted up around downtown Austin like expensive weeds, all sharp angles and reflective surfaces designed to intimidate and impress. The kind of building that screamed, "We're the future," to anyone walking by. I met Deacon and the team in the lobby at exactly 9 a.m. Deacon looked like he was trying not to smile, his massive frame squeezed into a city inspector's uniform that made him look like a friendly giant. Behind him stood 3 other inspectors, Claire Dempsey from Environmental Compliance, Cole Bradley from Fire Safety, and Brooke Lynn from Zoning. The best team I could assemble on short notice. "Morning, boss," Deacon said, his voice carrying just a hint of excitement. "Ready to make some new friends?" The receptionist, a young woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and a smile that probably cost more than my monthly salary, looked up as we approached. Her expression shifted from professional welcome to barely concealed panic in the space of a heartbeat. "Good morning," I said, producing my credentials. "Senior Inspector Harrison, Austin Planning and Zoning Commission. We're here for a comprehensive regulatory compliance inspection of Novatech Solutions." I'll need to call upstairs," she stammered, reaching for her phone. "That won't be necessary," I replied smoothly. "This is an unscheduled inspection, which means we have the right to immediate access under City Code Section 12.4.7. I'm sure a company as professional as Novatech keeps all their documentation in perfect order." The elevator ride to the 15th floor was silent, except for the soft jazz playing through hidden speakers. I could feel the team's anticipation building. They didn't know why we were here, but they could sense the importance. Deacon kept glancing at me with curiosity, probably wondering what had prompted this sudden interest in a tech company that had never crossed our radar before. The doors opened to reveal Novatech's reception area, all polished chrome and expensive modern artwork. And there, standing behind the main desk like a deer caught in headlights, was Lydia Mercer. "Inspector Harrison," she said, her voice carefully controlled. "This is unexpected." "Ms. Mercer, isn't it? We met last night at dinner." I smiled my most professional smile. "Lovely to see you again. I trust Mr. Wells is in this morning." "He's in a meeting, but I'm sure he can spare a few minutes." "Actually, it's better if we start without him. Less disruption to your normal operations." I turned to my team. "Claire, I want you to start with their server room. Check all environmental controls, air filtration, fire suppression systems, Cole, main floor fire safety, every exit, every extinguisher, every alarm. Brooke, I need a complete review of their space usage against their zoning permits. And Deacon," I paused, savoring the moment. "Deacon, I want you to audit their business licenses, all of them. Cross-reference every permit they've filed in the last 3 years. Check for discrepancies, omissions, anything that doesn't match their current operations." Lydia's face had gone pale. "Is there some kind of problem? We've always been very careful about compliance." "I'm sure you have," I said pleasantly. "This is just routine." Although I pretended to consult my clipboard, we have received some anonymous complaints about potential violations. Nothing specific, you understand. But the commission takes all reports seriously. That was a lie, of course, but Lydia didn't know that. The next 4 hours were beautiful to watch. My team moved through Novatech's offices like a well-oiled machine, documenting every potential violation, every questionable practice, every permit that might be out of date or improperly filed. And there were plenty. The server room's fire suppression system hadn't been inspected in 18 months. 2 emergency exits were partially blocked by filing cabinets. Their business license listed them as a consulting firm, but they were clearly engaged in software development, which required different permits and environmental considerations. And their employee count had grown from 12 to 37 without updating their occupancy permits. Nothing fatal, nothing that couldn't be fixed, but enough violations to tie them up in red tape for months while they scrambled to bring everything into compliance. Around noon, Garrison Wells finally appeared. He looked like he hadn't slept, his usually perfect hair disheveled, his expensive shirt wrinkled. He approached me like a man walking to his own execution. "Inspector Harrison," he said, his voice strained. "I understand you're conducting an inspection." "That's correct, Mr. Wells, just doing our job. Is there anything specific we should know about? Any particular concerns?" I looked up from my clipboard, meeting his eyes directly. "Mr. Wells, are you asking me to discuss an ongoing investigation with the subject of that investigation?" "No, that's not what I meant, because that would be highly irregular. The commission maintains strict protocols about these matters." Garrison's hands were shaking slightly. Behind him, I could see other employees watching nervously. Word had spread through the office that the city inspectors were here, and the mood had shifted from normal workplace bustle to barely contained panic. "Of course," Garrison said, "we just want to cooperate fully." "I appreciate that. And I'm sure once we've completed our review, any issues we find can be resolved quickly, assuming, of course, that they're minor violations, major violations." I let the sentence hang in the air like a sword. "What kind of major violations?" "Oh, operating outside your licensed capacity, misrepresenting your business activities, environmental noncompliance, the kind of things that can result in immediate closure pending a full administrative review." Garrison's face went white again. "Closure? Temporary, of course, usually just a few months while everything gets sorted out, though in some cases," I shrugged, "well, let's hope it doesn't come to that." I watched him process this information, watched him realize that his entire company, his entire future, was in the hands of the predictable husband he'd been mocking just 12 hours earlier. "Inspector Harrison," he said carefully, "if there's anything we can do to expedite this process, Mr. Wells, are you attempting to influence a city official in the performance of his duties?" "No, God, no. I would never. Because that would be a serious matter, the kind of thing that gets reported to the district attorney's office." Garrison looked like he might faint. "I was just asking about standard procedures. Standard procedures are that we complete our inspection, file our report, and make our recommendations to the commission. The commission then decides what actions, if any, need to be taken. How long does that usually take?" I pretended to consider this. "Hard to say. Depends on the complexity of the violations. Could be weeks, could be months. The commission is very thorough." By 2 o'clock, we were finished, and my team had documented 17 separate violations ranging from minor paperwork issues to more serious safety and zoning concerns. Nothing that would shut them down permanently, but enough to cause serious problems. As we packed up our equipment, I pulled Deacon aside. "Make sure the report goes to the top of the pile," I said quietly. "I want the commission to review this first thing Monday morning." "You got it, boss. But Pierce, what's this really about?" I looked across the office to where Garrison was huddled with Lydia, both of them looking like they'd aged 10 years in one afternoon. "Let's just say I've developed a new appreciation for regulatory compliance." As we waited for the elevator, I heard my name called. Sloane was hurrying toward us, her designer heels clicking on the polished floor. She looked beautiful as always, but there was something different in her expression. Concern? Fear? "Pierce, what are you doing here?" "Official business," I said calmly. "Routine inspection." "But why didn't you tell me?" "I could have prepared everyone, made sure what, Sloane? That everything looked proper, that any violations were hidden?" She blinked, taken aback by the edge in my voice. "That's not what I meant." "I'm sure it isn't." The elevator arrived, and I stepped inside. "See you at home tonight. Assuming you're coming home tonight." The doors closed on her confused expression, leaving her standing in the lobby of her lover's crumbling empire. As we descended toward the lobby, Deacon whistled softly. "Remind me never to get on your bad side, boss." "Don't worry, Deacon, you're one of the good guys." But as I watched the floor numbers tick down, I was already planning my next move. The inspection was just the beginning. Garrison Wells and my dear wife Sloane thought they were playing games with a predictable, oblivious husband. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The phone started ringing at 6 a.m. on Saturday morning. I let it go to voicemail while I made my artisanal espresso and read the Financial Times, savoring the normalcy of the morning routine. Sloan was still asleep upstairs, or pretending to be. She'd come home late Friday night, claiming she'd been helping Garrison deal with some regulatory issues that came up. The irony was delicious. By the time I'd finished my second cup of coffee, there were 4 voicemails from Garrison Wells, each one more desperate than the last. Inspector Harrison, this is Garrison Wells from Novatech. I was hoping we could discuss the inspection results. Please call me back as soon as possible. It's Garrison again. I really need to speak with you about the violations your team found. I'm sure we can resolve everything quickly. Inspector Harrison, please. I know it's early, but this is extremely urgent. The commission's report could destroy everything we've built here. Pierce, please. I know who you are. I know about Sloan. We need to talk. The last message made me smile. So Garrison had finally connected the dots. Good. It was time for him to understand exactly who he'd been playing with. I called Camilla Thorne, my high-stakes divorce attorney, while Sloan was still upstairs. Camilla had been handling ruthless legal matters for the elite for 20 years, and she had a reputation for being an absolute shark when the situation called for it. Pierce, it's Saturday morning. This better be good. I need to file for divorce. There was a pause. Jesus, what happened? Sloan's been having an affair with her boss. I have evidence, lots of evidence. How much evidence? The hidden nanny cams, the intercepted text chains, the downloaded iCloud backups, and a forensic financial audit of shared accounts showing they've been draining our joint high-yield funds for hotel rooms, enough to trigger the specific prenuptial agreement loopholes and completely annihilate her in the settlement. I'll need to see everything. Can you come in Monday morning? Actually, I was hoping we could expedite things. Serve the weaponized divorce papers Monday at her office. Make it public. Another pause. Longer this time. Pierce, that's pretty aggressive. Are you sure you want to go nuclear? Camilla, she's been making a fool of me for months, maybe years. She and her boyfriend have been laughing at me, calling me pathetic, planning their future together while I funded the lifestyle and played the oblivious husband. So yes, I want to go nuclear. All right, bring me everything you have. And Pierce, I'm sorry, this must be hell. Actually, Camilla, I'm feeling better than I have in months. After I hung up, I went upstairs to check on my wife. She was awake, staring at her phone with a worried expression. Everything okay? I asked from the doorway. She looked up, startled. Oh, hi. Yes, everything's fine, just some work issues. Anything I can help with? She laughed, but it sounded forced. I don't think municipal inspections are your area of expertise, if only she knew. Well, if you need anything, I said pleasantly, I'll be downstairs working on some projects. My home office was in the East Wing, a pristine space filled with filing cabinets and encrypted servers that most people assumed contained boring city documents. What they didn't know was that I'd been building a comprehensive database of every high society business, every permit, every corporate license in Austin for the past 15 years, cross-referenced, indexed, and searchable. It was my hobby, my passion project, and now it was going to be my weapon. I spent the morning pulling everything I could find on Novatech Solutions and Garrison Wells, business licenses, zoning permits, environmental impact reports, tax filings, SEC disclosures. I also ran searches on their major clients, their suppliers, their elite business partners. What I found was interesting. Novatech had grown rapidly over the past 2 years, but their permit applications hadn't kept pace with their expansion. They were operating in legal gray areas, cutting corners, making assumptions about what they could get away with. More importantly, 3 of their biggest clients were companies that regularly dealt with the city, companies that needed permits, licenses, and regulatory approvals to operate, companies that might be very interested to know that their software provider was facing potential shutdown due to compliance violations. I made a list of phone calls to make on Monday morning. Around noon, Sloan came downstairs. She was dressed to go out, but trying to look casual about it. I'm going to run some errands. You said, need anything from the store? Where are you going? Just the usual places, organic market, the spa, maybe stop by the boutique. I nodded pleasantly. Take your time. I've got plenty to keep me busy here. After she left, I activated the tracking app I'd embedded in her phone's firmware. 20 minutes later, she was parked outside Garrison's luxury penthouse complex in downtown Austin. I called Deacon. Hey boss, what's up? Feel like doing some weekend surveillance work? Off the books? What do you need? Garrison Wells. I want to know where he goes, who he talks to, what he does, starting now. Any particular reason? Let's call it professional curiosity. You got it. I'll grab my camera gear and head out. The rest of Saturday passed quietly. Sloane came home around 6 o'clock, claiming she'd spent the day at the country club, though she had no tennis gear and no receipts. She seemed nervous, distracted, checking her phone constantly. How was your day?" she asked over our catered dinner. "Productive. I've been working on a project that's really coming together." "That's nice. What kind of project?" "Oh, just some research. You know how I like to dig into things, find connections that other people miss." She nodded absently, already looking at her phone again. Sunday morning brought more desperate calls from Garrison. I didn't answer any of them, but I listened to every voicemail. His voice got more strained with each message, more frantic. He was starting to realize that his entire world was balanced on a knife's edge, and the man holding the knife was someone he'd dismissed as irrelevant. Deacon called around noon with his surveillance report. "Interesting day yesterday," he said. "Wells spent about 3 hours at his penthouse with a female visitor, blonde, well-dressed, drove a silver Porsche." "That would be my wife." "Crap, Pierce. I'm sorry, don't be." "What else?" "After she left, he drove around the city for about an hour. Seemed agitated. Kept making phone calls. Then he went to Lydia Mercer's place and stayed for 2 hours. When he left there, he went to 3 different elite bars downtown, drinking alone, looking miserable. Perfect. Keep watching him today. I want to know if he does anything unusual." "You got it, boss." "But Pierce, what's the end game here?" "The end game, Deacon, is that some people are about to learn that actions have consequences." Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling, the kind of rare Austin weather that matched my mood perfectly. I dressed in my best suit again, the one that made me look like someone who could destroy your life with a signature. Camilla's office was in a sleek high-rise overlooking Lady Bird Lake, all floor-to-ceiling glass and minimalist furniture that screamed old money and new power. She'd reviewed all my evidence over the weekend, and her expression was grim when I walked in. "This is bad, Pierce. Really bad. The intercepted text chains and iCloud backups are enough to trigger the specific prenuptial agreement loopholes, but the forensic financial audit, they've been draining your joint high-yield accounts for their hotel meetings. I know, and the timeline suggests this has been going on for at least 6 months. Probably longer, I figured. I can have the weaponized divorce papers drawn up by this afternoon." "But are you sure you want to serve them at her office? It's going to be humiliating for her. That's the point." Camilla studied my face for a long moment. "Okay, but Pierce, once we do this, there's no going back. This is going to get ugly." "It's already ugly, Camilla. I'm just making it visible." While Camilla worked on the legal filings, I went to City Hall. The zoning commission occupied the 3rd floor of a modernist building that had been dictating Austin's skyline for decades. My office was at the end of a long hallway lined with filing cabinets and the accumulated bureaucracy of billions of dollars in real estate. I had 3 phone calls to make. The first was to Arthur Pendleton, CEO of Pendleton Development. His company was Novatech's biggest client, and they were currently waiting for approval on a major downtown project that needed 17 different permits from the city. "Arthur, it's Pierce Harrison from zoning." "Pierce, good to hear from you. How's that downtown project looking?" "That's actually why I'm calling. I wanted to give you a heads up about a potential issue with one of your contractors. Oh, Novatech Solutions, they're facing some serious compliance problems. Might be shut down pending a full administrative review." There was a pause. "They're handling our entire project management system. If they go down, I thought you should know. Might want to have a backup plan." "Jesus, thanks for the heads up, Pierce. I owe you one." "Just doing my job, Arthur." The second call was to Eleanor Royce at Capital Financial. They used Novatech for their regulatory compliance software, and they had 3 major permit applications pending with the city. The third call was to Julian Mercer, Lydia's uncle, who owned a hospitality empire that regularly needed zoning approvals and liquor license renewals. By noon, word was spreading through Austin's elite business community that Novatech Solutions was in serious trouble with the city. The kind of trouble that could destroy client relationships and eliminate future contracts. Deacon called at 1 o'clock. "Boss, you need to hear this. Wells has been making calls all morning trying to reach you. Then around 11 o'clock, he got a call that made him go ballistic. Started screaming at someone, threw his phone across the office. Lydia Mercer was there, and she looked like she was going to cry. What happened after that? He stormed out of the building. Lydia followed him. They had a huge argument in the parking garage. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught something about your husband and destroying everything. Where is he now? Back in his office, but he looks like hell. And Pierce? There's been a steady stream of people leaving the building all morning. Employees, clients, high-stakes business partners. Whatever you did, it's working. At 3 o'clock, Camilla called. Papers are ready. My process server's standing by. You sure about this? Do it. Okay. He'll be at Novatech in 30 minutes. And Pierce, I hope you know what you're doing. I hung up and leaned back in my chair, looking out the window at the city I'd spent 15 years learning to control. Somewhere out there, Garrison Wells was watching his empire crumble. Somewhere out there, my wife was about to discover that her predictable, oblivious husband wasn't quite as stupid as she thought. My phone buzzed gently with a text from Deacon. Process server just entered the building. This is about to get interesting. I smiled and reached for my espresso. It was indeed about to get very interesting. The process server's timing was perfect. According to Deacon's surveillance report, Sloan was in Garrison's office when the papers were delivered, along with Lydia and 2 potential clients who'd come to discuss terminating their contracts. The server walked into the glass-walled conference room, asked for Sloan Harrison by name, and handed her the weaponized divorce papers in front of everyone. Deacon said you could hear her gasp from the hallway. I was sitting in my office pretending to review permit applications when my phone started buzzing. First, Garrison, then Lydia, then finally Sloan herself. I let them all go to voicemail while I finished my paperwork. Let them stew for a while. Let them realize that the predictable husband they'd been mocking had just played a card they never saw coming. Around 5 o'clock, I finally listened to the messages. Garrison, Bob, you fool, you think you're clever? This isn't over. Lydia, Inspector Harrison, please call me. We need to discuss the situation like adults. Sloan, Pierce, what the hell is going on? Call me back right now. I deleted them all and headed home. Sloan's Porsche was already in the circular driveway when I arrived, parked at an angry angle that told me she'd been in a hurry. I could see her silhouette through the massive windows, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. I took my time walking to the front door, stopping to check the mail and observe the manicured landscaping. Let her wait. Let her think about what she was going to say. 23 years of a high society marriage, and she was finally going to have to face the consequences of her actions. She was waiting for me in the gourmet kitchen, the divorce papers spread across the marble island like evidence at a crime scene. Her face was flushed, her perfectly styled hair disheveled, her expensive makeup smeared from crying. What the hell is this, Pierce? I hung up my jacket and loosened up my silk tie before answering. It's a petition for divorce triggering the specific prenuptial agreement loopholes on grounds of infidelity. I thought the legal language was pretty clear. You had me served at work in front of high net worth clients. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? About as humiliating as finding out your wife has been screwing her boss for the past 6 months. She flinched like I'd slapped her. How long have you known? Long enough. Long enough to do a forensic financial audit of our shared accounts, the hotel receipts drained from our joint high-yield funds, the intercepted text chains and the downloaded iCloud backups, the hidden nanny cams exposing the lies about working late and weekend charity meetings. I sat down across from her, meeting her eyes directly, long enough to realize that my wife thinks I'm a pathetic loser who deserves to be cheated on. I never said that. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a screenshot I'd taken of her messages. Poor Pierce. He has no idea what he's missing, or what he's about to lose. Ring any bells? Her face went white. You've been spying on me. I've been protecting my assets. There's a difference. She stared at the papers, her hand shaking slightly. Pierce, we can work this out. It doesn't have to be like this. Garrison and it's not serious. It's just what? Just sex? Just fun? Just a way to pass the time while your predictable husband funds your elite lifestyle? You don't understand. Things between us haven't been good for years. We barely talk anymore. We don't connect. I felt lonely, and Garrison made me feel alive again. So it's my fault. That's not what I'm saying. It sounds like that's exactly what you're saying. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. Then tell me something, Sloan. When you were in that boutique hotel room with Garrison, when you were laughing about what a pathetic fool I am, Did you ever think about what would happen if I found out? We weren't laughing about you. Your husband wouldn't know sex if it bit him on his pathetic ass. That was Garrison, wasn't it? And you thought it was hilarious." She closed her eyes, tears leaking down her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can—" "Nomer Pierce, please. 23 years, that has to count for something. It did count for something. It counted for loyalty. It counted for trust. It counted for not humiliating your spouse in front of their elite friends and colleagues." I stood up, suddenly tired of the whole conversation, but apparently it didn't count for enough. "What about Garrison? What did you do to him? Garrison?" "I didn't do anything to Garrison. I just did my job. Don't lie to me. His company is falling apart. Clients are canceling massive contracts. The city is threatening to shut them down. That's not a coincidence." I smiled, and she recoiled from the expression. "You're right. It's not a coincidence. It's consequences. You're destroying his life." "No, Sloan. He destroyed his own life when he decided to have an affair with a married woman. I'm just making sure the city's regulations are properly enforced. This is insane. You can't use your job to get revenge on people. I'm not getting revenge. I'm ensuring compliance with municipal codes and regulations. If Garrison's company can't operate within the law, that's Garrison's problem." She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "I don't know who you are anymore. I'm the same person I've always been, Sloan. I'm just not hiding it anymore." I headed for the sweeping staircase. "I'll be sleeping in the guest wing from now on. I suggest you find somewhere else to stay while the divorce proceedings move forward. Pierce, wait." I stopped at the bottom of the stairs and turned back to her. "I love you," she said quietly. "I know I screwed up, but I do love you." "No, you don't. You love the idea of my wealth. You love having a stable, reliable husband who funds the lifestyle and doesn't ask too many questions. But you don't love me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have been able to do what you did." I left her sitting at the marble island, surrounded by the wreckage of our high society marriage, and went upstairs to pack my things. As I folded custom shirts and gathered toiletries, I could hear her making phone calls downstairs, probably to Garrison, probably to Lydia, probably to anyone in our social circle who would listen to her version of events. Let her call, let her cry, let her rage against the unfairness of it all, because tomorrow things were going to get much worse. My phone buzzed with a text from Deacon. "Wells has been trying to reach you all evening. Getting pretty desperate. Want me to keep watching him?" I texted back. "Yes, and Deacon, tomorrow's gonna be interesting. Be ready." As I settled into the guest wing bed, I could hear Sloan crying downstairs. Part of me, the part that had loved her for 23 years, wanted to go to her, wanted to hold her and tell her everything would be okay, but that part of me was smaller now, overwhelmed by anger and betrayal and a cold satisfaction that justice was finally being served. Garrison Wells and Sloan Harrison thought they could play games with people's lives. They thought they could lie and cheat and laugh at the fool they'd made of me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Tuesday morning brought news that made my espresso taste even better than usual. Deacon called at 7 a.m. with an update that had him barely containing his laughter. "Boss, you're not going to believe this. Wells showed up at City Hall at 6:30 this morning, waiting outside the building like a homeless guy. Security had to let him in when the building opened. He's been asking everyone he can find how to reach you. Is he still there? As of 5 minutes ago, yeah. He looks like he hasn't slept in a week. And get this, Lydia Mercer quit yesterday afternoon. Just walked out. Didn't even give notice. Word is she's moving back to California to work for her cousin's venture capital firm." I wasn't surprised. Lydia was smart enough to see which way the wind was blowing. Garrison's company was finished, and she was cutting her losses before the whole thing collapsed on top of her. What about the employees? Half the office cleared out yesterday. The ones who stayed are updating their resumes. Oh, and 3 more clients canceled their elite contracts, including Pendleton Development. Pendleton, that one would hurt. They were Garrison's biggest account, worth almost 40% of Novatech's annual revenue. Keep watching him, Deacon. I have a feeling today is going to be eventful. I took my time getting ready for work, choosing my clothes carefully. Today called for my most intimidating suit, the charcoal gray one that made me look like a ruthless corporate litigator. I wanted Garrison Wells to see exactly who he'd been dealing with. Sloan was gone when I came downstairs. Her Porsche wasn't in the circular driveway, and there was no note. She'd probably spent the night at a boutique hotel or maybe with one of her socialite friends. Either way, it saved me the trouble of another awkward conversation. I drove to City Hall through the morning traffic, listening to the local financial news on the radio. The business report mentioned that several Austin tech companies were facing regulatory challenges, though they didn't name Novatech specifically. They didn't need to. In a city this size, word traveled fast. Garrison was waiting outside my office when I arrived, slumped in one of the uncomfortable chairs that the city provided for visitors. He looked terrible, unshaven, rumpled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me, he jumped up like a man grabbing a lifeline. "Inspector Harrison, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for days. Mr. Wells." I unlocked my office door and stepped inside, not inviting him to follow. "What can I do for you?" "We need to talk. About the inspection, about the violations, about—" He glanced around nervously. "About everything." I sat down behind my desk and opened my computer, pretending to check my encrypted email. "I'm afraid I can't discuss an ongoing investigation with the subject of that investigation. You'll need to work through proper channels." Proper channels? My company's dying. Half my staff has quit. My top-tier clients are canceling contracts, and the commission is threatening to shut us down permanently. That sounds like a business problem, Mr. Wells, not a regulatory issue. He stared at me for a long moment, his face cycling through confusion, anger, and finally something that looked like understanding. "This is about Sloan, isn't it?" I looked up from my computer screen, meeting his eyes directly. "I'm sorry, about us, about what's been happening." "Mr. Wells, are you suggesting that a city official would misuse his position for personal reasons? Because that's a very serious accusation." No, that's not what I meant. "Good, because that would be corruption, the kind of thing that gets investigated by the FBI. Garrison's face went white. He'd walked into a trap, and he was smart enough to realize it. If he accused me of using my position for revenge, he'd be admitting to the affair. If he didn't, he had no way to fight back." "What do you want?" he asked quietly. "I want compliance with city regulations. Nothing more, nothing less." "There has to be something, some way to fix this." I leaned back in my chair, studying him. "Mr. Wells, let me ask you something. When you were sleeping with my wife, did you ever think about the consequences? Did you ever consider what might happen if someone found out? Inspector Harrison, did you think I was too stupid to figure it out, too pathetic to do anything about it?" He didn't answer, but the look on his face was answer enough. "Here's the thing about consequences, Mr. Wells. They don't care about your intentions. They don't care about your feelings. They just are." I turned back to my computer. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." "Wait." His voice was desperate now. "What about Sloan? She's gonna lose everything too. Her standing, her reputation, her marriage. Is that what you want?" "What I want, Mr. Wells, is for people to face the results of their choices. Sloan made her choice when she decided to have an affair. You made yours when you decided to help her. Now you both get to live with the consequences. You're destroying innocent people's lives. My employees, my clients. Your employees can find other jobs. Your clients can find other vendors. But my marriage, that can't be replaced." I stood up, towering over him. "You took something from me that I can never get back. 23 years of trust, of love, of believing in someone who is lying to my face every single day. So forgive me if I don't feel particularly sympathetic about your business problems." Garrison stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked out of my office without another word. I watched him go, feeling a satisfaction deeper than anything I'd experienced in months. An hour later, Deacon called with another update. "Wells just left City Hall. Looked like he was going to throw up. But boss, you need to know he went straight to the police station. What? He's filing a complaint. Corruption, misuse of power, the whole 9 yards." I wasn't worried. I'd been very careful to stay within the bounds of the law. Every inspection had been legitimate, every violation real, every procedure followed to the letter. Garrison could complain all he wanted, but he had no proof of wrongdoing because there wasn't any. "Let him file his complaint," I told Deacon. "Internal affairs will investigate and find exactly nothing." "If you say so, boss, but maybe you should call your high-stakes divorce attorney." "Already on it." I called Camilla and filled her in on the situation. She listened without interruption, then sighed heavily. "Pierce, you're playing with fire here. Even if everything you did was technically legal, the optics are terrible. A city official targeting his wife's lover, that's going to make headlines." "Let it make headlines." I got nothing to hide. Maybe not, but mud sticks. Even if you're cleared of any wrongdoing, your elite reputation is going to take a hit. Is it worth it? I thought about Sloan humming our wedding song in the shower after sleeping with another man. I thought about Garrison's dismissive handshake at dinner, his assumption that I was too stupid and too weak to be a threat. Yeah, Camilla, it's worth it. The rest of the day passed quietly. I caught up on paperwork, reviewed some pending applications, and tried to pretend it was just another normal Tuesday at the office, but every few hours my phone would buzz with updates from Deacon. Novatech's landlord had been contacted about potential lease violations. 2 more executives had quit. Garrison had been seen at an elite bar downtown drinking alone and looking miserable. Around 4 o'clock, Sloan called. "Pierce, we need to talk. I thought we said everything we needed to say last night." "Garrison went to the police. He's accusing you of corruption." "I know. Aren't you worried?" "Should I be?" There was a pause. Did what he's accusing you of?" "I did my job, Sloan. I enforced the regulations that Garrison's company was violating. If he wants to call that corruption, that's his right, but the timing is irrelevant. The violations were real." "Pierce, please, this is getting out of hand. People are going to get hurt. People are already hurt, Sloan. I'm just making sure everyone shares the pain." I hung up and went back to work, but I couldn't concentrate. Despite what I told Camilla, I was starting to feel the weight of what I'd set in motion. Garrison's company was collapsing, taking down innocent employees and high-stakes business partners with it. Sloan's social standing was probably finished, and I was facing a corruption investigation that could destroy my own reputation, even if I was cleared. But every time I started to feel guilty, I remembered the intercepted text chains, the mockery, the casual cruelty of 2 people who thought they were smarter than everyone else. They'd made their choices. Now they could live with the consequences. My phone buzzed with one final text from Deacon. "Wells's company just lost their office lease. Landlord says they're in violation of occupancy limits. Funny how these things work out." I smiled and deleted the message. Tomorrow, I'd start planning the final phase of my revenge, because Garrison Wells and Sloan Harrison hadn't suffered enough yet. Not nearly enough. The corruption investigation lasted exactly 6 days. Internal Affairs went through my files with a microscope, interviewed my colleagues, reviewed every decision I'd made regarding Novatech solutions. They found exactly what I knew they'd find. Nothing. Every inspection had been legitimate. Every violation had been real. Every procedure had been followed to the letter. The timing might have been suspicious, but timing wasn't evidence of corruption. Detective Harper Quinlan, who led the investigation, called me into her office on Monday morning to deliver the verdict. Inspector Harrison, after a thorough review of Mr. Wells's allegations, "We found no evidence of wrongdoing on your part. The case is closed." "Thank you, Detective. However," she continued, "I want to give you some advice off the record." I nodded. "Be careful. Wells is desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. He's lost his company. His girlfriend apparently dumped him, and now his corruption complaint has been dismissed. He's got nothing left to lose. I appreciate the warning. And Inspector, whatever he did to you, whatever this is really about, Maybe it's time to let it go. You've won. Don't let victory turn into something you'll regret. I thanked her and left, but her words stayed with me as I drove back to City Hall. Had I won? Garrison's company was finished, Sloan had moved out of our estate, and the ruthless divorce was proceeding smoothly. By any objective measure, I'd achieved everything I'd set out to do. So why didn't it feel like enough? The answer came to me that afternoon when Deacon knocked on my office door with a troubled expression. "Boss, we need to talk. It's about Wells. What about him? He's been asking around about you, personal stuff. Where you live, where you go for lunch, what time you leave work, and he's been drinking a lot." I felt a chill run down my spine. "How do you know this?" Beatrice Monroe from the cloakroom called me. She knows we work together and she's worried. Says Wells has been coming in every night, getting plastered and talking about how you destroyed his life. Beatrice Monroe was a fixture at the cloakroom, a 70-year-old retired socialite who knew everyone in Austin and heard everything. If she was worried enough to call, the situation was serious. What exactly has he been saying? That you're a corrupt fool who used your position to destroy an innocent man, that someone needs to teach you a lesson, that he's going to make you pay for what you did. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. Detective Quinlan had been right. Garrison was desperate, and desperate people were dangerous. "Deacon, I want you to be extra careful for the next few weeks. Vary your routine, watch your back, that sort of thing. What about you? I can take care of myself." But as I said it, I realized I wasn't sure that was true anymore. I'd been so focused on destroying Garrison's professional life that I hadn't considered what he might do when he had nothing left to lose. That evening, I drove home through the quiet streets of my elite neighborhood, checking my rearview mirror more often than usual. The estate felt empty without Sloan, but it was a peaceful emptiness. No more lies, no more pretending, no more walking on eggshells around someone who was secretly despising me. I was making dinner when the doorbell rang. Through the high-definition security camera, I could see Garrison Wells standing on my porch. He was swaying slightly, and his designer clothes were disheveled, drunk, angry, and unpredictable. I opened the heavy door, but kept the reinforced lock engaged. "Garrison, what do you want? We need to talk." His words were slurred, his eyes unfocused. "I don't think that's a good idea. You've been drinking." "Damn right I've been drinking. You destroyed my life. You took everything from me. You destroyed your own life when you decided to sleep with my wife. That's BS, and you know it. What Sloan and I had was real. We loved each other." "Loved each other? Is that why she moved out of town yesterday?" His face crumpled. "She's coming back. Once this all blows over, once people forget, she'll come back." I almost felt sorry for him. Or almost. "Garrison, Sloan used you. She wanted excitement, adventure, something to make her feel young again. But when things got difficult, when her high society life was threatened, she ran, just like she always does." "You're lying." "Am I? When's the last time you talked to her? When's the last time she returned your calls?" He stared at me through the gap in the door, and I could see the truth sinking in. Sloan had abandoned him, just like she'd abandoned our marriage the moment it became inconvenient. "This is all your fault," he said quietly. "No, Garrison, this is all your fault. You made the choice to have an affair with a married woman. You made the choice to mock and humiliate her husband. You made the choice to operate your elite business outside the bounds of the law. I just made sure you faced the consequences." "Consequences?" He laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about consequences? I lost everything. My company, my employees, my future, all because you couldn't handle the fact that your wife preferred a real man. A real man doesn't sleep with someone else's wife. A real man doesn't hide behind a government job to get revenge." "I didn't hide behind anything, Garrison. I used the tools available to me, just like you used your elite status to seduce my wife. The difference is, what I did was legal." He pressed his face against the gap in the door, his breath reeking of expensive whiskey. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is. Go home, Garrison, sleep it off, and stay away from my estate." I closed the door and engaged the deadbolt, listening as his footsteps retreated down the stone steps. Through the window, I watched him stumble to his Mercedes and drive away, weaving slightly as he navigated the quiet residential street. I should have called the police, should have reported the threats, the drunk driving, the obvious instability, but part of me, the part that had been systematically destroying his life for the past 2 weeks, wanted to see how far he'd fall before he hit bottom. It was a mistake I'd regret for the rest of my life. The next morning, I woke to pounding on my front door and the sound of sirens in the distance. I threw on a robe and stumbled downstairs, squinting against the early morning light. Two police officers stood on my porch, their expressions grim. "Inspector Harrison, I'm Officer Dempsey. This is Officer Rollins. We need to ask you some questions about Garrison Wells." My blood ran cold. "What about him?" "He was found dead in his car this morning. Single vehicle accident on Loop 360. Preliminary investigation suggests he was intoxicated." I sank into a chair, the weight of the news hitting me like a physical blow. "Oh my God." "Sir, we understand you had some recent conflicts with Mr. Wells. Can you tell us about your last contact with him?" I told them about the previous evening, about Garrison's drunken visit, about his threats and obvious instability. They took notes, asked follow-up questions, and assured me that this appeared to be a tragic accident rather than anything more sinister. After they left, I sat in my gourmet kitchen for a long time, staring at the wall and trying to process what had happened. Garrison Wells was dead. The man who'd stolen my wife, mocked my high society marriage, and threatened my life was gone, eliminated by his own reckless desperation. I should have felt satisfaction, victory, justice served. Instead, I felt empty. My phone rang around noon. It was Sloan calling from whatever city she'd fled to. "Pierce, I heard about Garrison. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. The police said he'd been drinking, that he came to see you. He did. He was angry, drunk, making threats. I told him to go home." There was a long pause. Do you think this is our fault? Our fault? Even now? Even after everything?" She was trying to spread the blame around. "No, Sloan. This is Garrison's fault. He made his choices, and he had lived with the consequences, all of them. Pierce, I'm sorry. For everything. For the affair. For the lies. For the way I treated you. You didn't deserve any of it." "No, I didn't. Is there any chance? Can we try work things out, go to counseling, start over?" I looked around the massive kitchen at the weaponized divorce papers still scattered across the marble island, at the life I'd built and destroyed in the span of 2 weeks. "No, Sloan, there's no going back. I understand." Her voice was small, defeated. "I'll sign the papers. Whatever you want, I'll sign." After she hung up, I walked outside and stood in my circular driveway, looking at the estate Sloan and I had shared for 15 years. The elite neighbors were probably watching from their windows, whispering about the scandal that had consumed the power couple at the top of Westlake Hills. Let them whisper, let them judge. I'd gotten my revenge, destroyed my enemies, and proven that the predictable husband wasn't as helpless as everyone thought. But as I stood there in the autumn sunshine, surrounded by the wreckage of multiple lives, I realized that victory had a taste I hadn't expected. It tasted like ashes. 6 months later, the ruthless divorce was final. Sloan had moved to Seattle, taken a job with a nonprofit, and started what she called a simpler life. We communicated only through lawyers, dividing massive assets and memories with the cold efficiency of a corporate merger. Novatech Solutions had been dissolved, its remaining assets sold to pay creditors and former executives. The glass tower on Congress Avenue housed a new tenant now, a crisis firm that specialized in reputation management, a service that might have saved Garrison Wells if he thought to use it. I kept my job at the zoning commission, though the corruption investigation had left a stain that would never fully wash away. My colleagues treated me with a mixture of respect and wariness, unsure whether I was a dedicated public servant or a dangerous man who'd used his position for personal revenge. Maybe I was both. The estate in Westlake Hills felt different now, larger somehow, without the weight of secrets and lies pressing down on every room. I'd redecorated, thrown away the custom furniture that reminded me of Sloan, and created spaces that were entirely my own. It should have been a new beginning, a chance to start over, to find happiness again. But late at night, when the massive house was quiet and my thoughts turned inward, I couldn't escape the image of Garrison Wells' Mercedes wrapped around a tree on Loop 360. Couldn't forget the look in his eyes when he realized that Sloan had abandoned him. Couldn't shake the feeling that I'd pushed a desperate man past his breaking point and watched him fall. I'd gotten my revenge. I'd proven that actions have consequences, that betrayal comes with a price, that the predictable husband could be more dangerous than anyone imagined. But in destroying my enemies, I'd also destroyed the man I used to be, the man who believed in forgiveness, in second chances, and the possibility that people could change. That man was gone, replaced by someone harder, colder, more calculating. Someone who understood that in a world full of predators and prey, it was better to be the hunter than the hunted. I raised my glass of rare bourbon to the empty living room, toasting the ghosts of my former life. Aspen trips canceled. I whispered to the darkness, so is everything else. And in the silence that followed, I finally understood the true cost of revenge.